But first up tonight, the disaster of the Ruby Princess. It docked in Sydney 6 days ago now and is responsible for at least 133 infections in New South Wales and around the country. One of those people has died, and I'm about to reveal some details to you about another critical case which should horrify all of us, as well as the health authorities. But first, the blame game has played out on this today. The New South Wales government admitted yesterday it had made a monumental error in not forcing stricter health safeguards on these passengers. And today, the federal authority, the Australian Border Force, had their say.
What didn't happen was that health officers, trained doctors or nurses, didn't get on board the vessel, swab passengers, and take those swabs for results before decisions were taken about disembarking passengers, which is why when I spoke to New South Wales Self-Government on Friday night, I said what I'd seen in Victoria, the way that vessel was handled, was done very, very well. And had that occurred in this case, what happened wouldn't have happened.
There's a clear direction of blame there from the federal authorities. But I want to tell you about one particular case from the Ruby Princess that is deeply worrying. It involves a woman in her 40s from Western Australia who is a mother and is gravely ill. She's one of 11 people who got off cruise ships in Sydney and went back to Perth with the virus, 8 of them from the Ruby Princess. This woman was tested while she was on the Ruby Princess but disembarked regardless and stayed for 2 days in a Sydney hotel where she self-isolated and developed symptoms. She then flew, fully symptomatic apparently, from Sydney to Perth and then moved on to her home south of Perth. As her condition deteriorated, she was referred from a hospital to a GP and then admitted to another hospital before being put into isolation and now in intensive care. I understand she remains critically ill. Authorities are very cautious about confirming any details, and we of course hope for the best for her. But this is just terrible mismanagement. From what we know, this woman should not have travelled. But from what we know also, authorities should have been involved much earlier and not allowed this to happen. She should not have left that ship before the test results were known. She should not have been in that hotel in Sydney. She should have been in hospital in Sydney last week for her care and for the protection of others. And instead she stayed in that hotel and she's flown 5,000 kilometres on a plane, a 5-hour flight with other passengers, going through airports and heaven knows where else. As I said last night, this Ruby Princess debacle is by far the biggest stuff-up of the coronavirus response in this country so far. Our health authorities, state and federal, must do better than this. And there are ships off our west and east coasts now wanting to dock.